Friday, 4:49 p.m. at the Allegheny County Department of Real Estate in downtown Pittsburgh, the air smells like copier toner and wet umbrellas. I stand at a scratched counter with a black key on my palm. It's small, heavy, and cold, like it knows secrets. Aunt Val pressed it into my hand 10 years ago and said, "You'll know when." The clerk glances from me to the key to the folder I brought, the one with the brittle paper and the blue ribbon. She asks, "Are you filing today?" I nod. My phone buzzes in my jacket pocket. A group text explodes from my cousin Jason. "Stop whatever you're doing. Do not file anything. Not one signature moves without me." The clerk asks for my ID. Behind me, the glass doors sigh open. Footsteps, heels, a familiar perfume that makes me think of real estate brochures and fake flowers. The HOA board's voice, chipper and hard, moves like a knife through butter. "Is there a filing for 118 Cross Street? We have urgent documentation." I look over my shoulder and see a stack of violation notices in a manicured hand. My chest tightens. The clerk flips to page 5. "This is a land trust," she says. "2 signatures required to convey, encumber, or list the property. The co-trustee is..." She looks up. "You." The glass doors swing again. Jason strides in, red-faced, Lila at his shoulder, a realtor trailing with a box of glossy coming soon flyers. I set the black key next to the blue ribbon and slide the trust binder forward. "Timestamp it," I say, trying to keep my voice even. The clerk stamps the memorandum. The sound hits the counter like a gavel. 4:55 p.m. A strip of ink soaks into the page. The realtor pauses by the lobby plant, shuts the trunk of his rolling case, and closes his mouth. Out on Grant Street, a bus roars by. Inside, everything is quiet enough to hear the trust breathing. 3 weeks earlier, I was not thinking about deeds or trusts or anyone's quick money plan. I was thinking about oatmeal and insulin and whether the maple syrup we had was too old. Aunt Val was up early, humming the chorus of a hymn that never settles into my head. She wore her church sweatshirt, even though it was Wednesday, and a little too warm for fleece. Her hair was pulled into a clip, and the clip was crooked. "I already had a piece of toast," she said, reaching for the fridge. "Toast is not breakfast for your numbers. Sit," I told her. "I'll scramble eggs." "Bossy," she smiled, and sat at the end of the table near the window that looks out over the narrow brick alley and the back fence the HOA makes such a fuss over. "Did you sleep?" I had a home health call at 2 a.m. Mrs. Leary again. She fired her blood pressure cuff like a slingshot. That woman needs a cat or a nap. Aunt Val traced the pattern in the table's oak. "You're 26. You should be out dancing." "After breakfast," I said, "right after I count carbs for your insulin." She lifted her hands in surrender. "You win." The duplex sits 3 blocks above the river in Lawrenceville, not far from the bakery that smells like cinnamon and the bar with the neon dinosaur. Aunt Val has the downstairs, and the upstairs apartment is small and bright with slanted ceilings and the kind of windows that make the snow look cinematic. It was my apartment when I needed it, then a month-to-month rental. Lately, it had been empty because Aunt's sugars were all over, and I was staying downstairs most nights. We ate eggs with a little cheddar and half an apple. I logged everything in the spiral notebook: time, units, breakfast. Aunt Val teased me about writing like a pharmacist. "Nora, it's a smudge of a 3, not an 8. Stop moving the notebook while I'm writing," I said, laughing. I washed dishes and lined up her morning pills. Our street was quiet, just the crunch of an early trash truck at the hilly intersection. A crisp white envelope set on the console table near the door where the mail falls like leaves. HOA on the corner of the envelope in a careful font. I pulled it open with my thumbnail. Courtesy notice, I read. Window boxes protruding 2 inches beyond approved guidelines. Potential fine, $50 per day. I stopped. I looked at our window boxes, faded green with pink petunias that Aunt waters morning and evening. I looked back at the letter. They measured the boxes? Aunt Val raised an eyebrow. Meredith came with a tape measure. She said it was the law of the land. Law of the land, I repeated. I'll call her. Don't, Aunt said. It's not worth the drama. I'll slide them back. I exhaled. Okay, but maybe we go to that board meeting next week. Maybe, she said, meaning no. I don't go where Meredith goes. I went to my shift at the clinic. I handled my patients, handed out gentle words, and ate a granola bar and 2 bites at the nurse's station. Around 6, I texted Aunt that I was picking up soup. She texted a thumbs up emoji and a heart. When I turned onto Cross Street, I saw a car I didn't recognize double parked by our curb, hazard lights clicking. That would have been fine if the person leaning against the car with the grin like he felt interesting wasn't my cousin Jason. We share a last name and a childhood of birthday cakes in church basements. We do not share a rhythm of checking in. Nora! Jason spread his arms like I was a TV show appearance. You look responsible. Thanks, I said. What are you doing here? Family drop-in, he said. Don't be so uptight. He popped the trunk. Lila slid out of the passenger seat. All legs and an outfit you can only wear if you're planning to be photographed. We brought cupcakes. She lifted a pink bakery box. Salted caramel. That's still a thing, right? We prefer dessert after dinner, I said automatically. Then I winced at myself. I mean, come in. Aunt's inside. Aunt Val was thrilled to see him. She kissed his cheek and fussed with his collar. You never visit, and now you bring a bride. I'm not a bride anymore. I'm a marketing director. For what? I asked. For content, she said, and winked. They stayed for soup. Jason told a long story about a startup that was definitely going to flip something into something. Lila scrolled her phone and made little sounds of agreeableness. When I stood to clear bowls, Jason stood too and wandered into the hall. He peered into the small bedroom, then into the back room with the laundry and the shelves where Aunt stores canning jars. You have so much potential, he said. Have you ever thought about opening up the back wall? Maybe add a patio. Buyers would die. This is not for sale, I said. Everything's for sale, Lila said softly, like an auntie whisper, even though she is my age, at the right price. Aunt Val pushed her chair back. We're not listing anything, honey. Of course, Jason said, palms up. I'm just talking. We're all family. Jason left with promises to help with anything, literally anything. He kissed Aunt's cheek again and squeezed my shoulder too hard. After the door closed, Aunt and I looked at the empty living room like it might offer commentary. He smells like cologne and paperwork, Aunt said. That's accurate, I said. Do you need your night insulin now? She nodded. I drew the dose and looked at the clock. When my phone buzzed, I thought it was work. It wasn't. It was a text from a number labeled with the bank's name because I had their alerts turned on for Aunt's accounts. Appointment reminder. Reverse mortgage consultation. Friday, 2 p.m., Plaza Branch. If you didn't authorize, call. My heart knocked. Reverse mortgage consultation. That phrase felt like a drop into a cold pool. Aunt Val, I said carefully, did you schedule something at the bank? Aunt's eyebrows came together. No, why? I showed her the text. She went from confusion to worry in a heartbeat. That's not right, she said. I'll call Mr. Alvarez, I said, because I know the branch and the manager. I scraped my confidence together. I'll fix this.
Mr. Alvarez picked up after the second ring. He knows me because I bring Aunt in for deposits and because I bring cookies sometimes when she bakes too many and needs them out of the house. He's calm and efficient. Tonight, he sounded like a lifeguard, steady and alert. "We have Aunt Valerie Hart down for a consultation," he said after I explained, "set by a party who claimed to be family. We always verify. They presented a springing power of attorney, said the trigger was a doctor note. I told them I would need the document and I would need to see your aunt." "A springing power of attorney?" I repeated. "No, I've never seen one. We have a healthcare proxy, but that's different." "It is," he said gently. "Do you want to put a note on her profile saying no appointments unless she calls herself or you call with her present?" "Yes," I said. "Please, and can you text me if anyone tries anything again?" "I shouldn't text you about other people's attempts," he said, "but I can put a fraud alert and I can put your number as a contact note with your aunt's authorization. Bring her in tomorrow and we'll tighten everything." I exhaled. "Thank you. We'll keep an eye out for anyone who comes in with a stack of notarized somethings," he said. After we hung up, I told Aunt Val we'd go in the morning to sign whatever was needed. She put her palm over mine on the table. "Nora, sit," she said. "I want to tell you something. It can wait until tomorrow, but maybe not." "Tell me now," I said, "because when someone who raised you says that, you clear your schedule." She looked at the kitchen door, then at me, then at the ceiling, like she was searching for a memory long stored in rafters. "In the cedar chest at the foot of my bed, there's a binder. It has a ribbon and a key taped inside. If anything ever feels rushed, you bring that binder to a clerk. The clerk will know." "What clerk?" I asked, thrown. "At the county building," she said, "on Grant Street. I put the house into a land trust in 2014. The lawyer was a kind woman with a loud laugh. We did it because your mother was sick then, and I didn't trust myself to make decisions with a clear head. The trust says things don't move without two heads that love this place the same way." "Two heads?" "Two signatures," she said. "Mine and the co-trustee. I named you co-trustee when you turned 21. I didn't tell Jason because Jason doesn't love the house. He loves what he can do with the house." I put my hand on the table to steady myself. "Aunt Val, I don't have a copy. I didn't know." "You know now," she said. "There's a black key taped inside under the ribbon. Keep it quiet. Keep it safe." I wanted to ask a dozen questions about whether the trust had been updated and if anyone knew and whether it was recorded and why she didn't say anything when the porch roof leaked last year and I paid a contractor who smelled like cigarettes and coffee to fix it. But Aunt's shoulders slumped and her eyes had that 2 a.m. glaze. I wrote down a note. Cedar chest, binder, key, tomorrow. Then I cleaned up the bowls, checked the back door twice, and sat on the couch with Aunt until the late-night weather report rolled by. The next night, the doorbell rang at 11:07 p.m. sharp. Not a buzz, a long press. I was in sweatpants. Aunt was asleep. No one we love visits late, not since my mother died. I peeked through the curtain. A contractor. He held a clipboard. He wore a vest with a patch that said Mason's Home Services. Behind him, halfway out of the street light, was a realtor I knew from yard signs and postcards. His name is Trent. He looked like he never thought about socks. I didn't open the door. I pressed the intercom. "It's late," I said. "Come back tomorrow. Office hours, not now." "This'll take a second," the contractor said. "Need a signature. Walk through authorization." "No," I said. "Jason asked us to stop by," the realtor added. "We're flooring guys. It's just a preliminary. Come back tomorrow. Office hours, not now." He laughed like there were no office hours for opportunity. I turned the porch light on and pointed at the camera that sits above the door. The realtor shielded his eyes and looked straight at the lens with the smile of a man who thinks a camera loves him. They went away, but the sound of their voices stuck to the porch like gum. The morning after, I scrolled the Ring app and saved the clip. I also saved a clip from 10:43 p.m. when Lila stood on the sidewalk, took a picture of our house from 3 angles, then flipped her hair like the house was a product she was endorsing. I took screenshots. I labeled them with the date. At the bank, Mr. Alvarez greeted Aunt Val like she was the mayor and me like I was her chief of staff. He printed a form that authorizes him to call me if any reverse mortgage conversation shows up again, and he put a note on Aunt's profile. No consultations without Aunt present and alert. He explained in plain language what a springing power of attorney is and how it only works when a doctor identifies incapacity, and even then, only within the scope of the document. Sometimes families do the right thing, and sometimes they do the other thing. On our way out, we ran into Jason on the sidewalk. He pretended the run-in was random. He acted like he was out for a walk in a neighborhood he never walks in. "Look at this," he said, holding up his phone. It showed a Canva graphic that read, "Pittsburgh Flip Collective. We're launching a brand. We help homeowners unlock value. We can do a 3-2-1 buy down, refinance, reverse mortgage, whatever, all ethical. We're thinking of doing a pilot in the family." "We're not doing that," I said. "I love knowing my little cousin thinks she's the gatekeeper," he said. He meant to sound kind. It did not land that way. "We have everything we need," Aunt said. "We have enough." Jason smiled like enough is a foreign currency. "Sure, Aunt Val, you've always been old school." Jason and Lila threw a small party the next night, not in our house, online. 15 Instagram stories, renovation tips, mood boards, a caption that said, "Our next reveal is going to break the internet. Grandma chic into modern minimal. Watch this space." In one photo, our porch railing appeared in the background like a photo-bombing friend. The HOA letter after that was sharper. It said there had been reports of non-compliance with short-term rental bylaws. It said an audit was scheduled. It included a list of documents we had to produce within 5 business days to maintain good standing. It was signed by Meredith, the board president, who never met a rule she didn't announce like scripture. I called her. "We're not running a short-term rental," I said. "I did not accuse you," she said, and I could hear the exact smile from a mile away. "I said there were reports. We have to check. It's our duty to preserve property values." "Who reported us?" I asked. "I can't say," she said. "Confidentiality and all that." "Tell them to look at the porch camera footage. It shows who's advising who." She sighed. "This is why we have rules," she said, and hung up. Aunt shuffled to the doorway and listened to the empty line like she might hear something helpful if she gave it a minute. "You can go to the board meeting," she said. "I will not." "I'll go, and I'll bring math." That afternoon, I opened the cedar chest. It smelled like winter sweaters and cedar blocks and the faint sweetness of old paper. The binder was wrapped in brown paper and tied with a blue ribbon that had loosened itself like a tired shoelace. Under the ribbon, taped with yellowing clear tape, was the black key I held 3 weeks later at the county counter. The first page of the binder was a letter from a lawyer whose name I didn't recognize, but whose laugh, according to Aunt, was loud. The letter explained a land trust structured to hold 118 Cross Street and to require 2 signatures for any conveyance, encumbrance, or listing. The trust named Aunt as trustee and named me as co-trustee upon my 21st birthday. It did not require any cousin's blessing. It did not answer to any board's appetite for unlocking value. There were copies of recorded documents. There was an unrecorded memorandum that could be stamped to give public notice of the trust if anyone pretended it did not exist. There was a slot in the binder where the key had lived under tape. I lifted it and felt the weight in my palm. It had no brand name and no magic to the eye, but my chest lifted like a window had opened in stale air. I put the binder into my bag. I slid the key into the small zippered pocket I never use because I would lose my fingers before I lost that pocket. Then I made dinner because being dramatic on an empty stomach never ends well. He laughed like there were no office hours for opportunity. I turned the porch light on and pointed at the camera that sits above the door. The realtor shielded his eyes and looked straight at the lens with the smile of a man who thinks a camera loves him. They went away, but the sound of their voices stuck to the porch like gum. The morning after, I scrolled the Ring app and saved the clip. I also saved a clip from 10:43 p.m. when Lila stood on the sidewalk, took a picture of our house from 3 angles, then flipped her hair like the house was a product she was endorsing. I took screenshots. I labeled them with the date. At the bank, Mr. Alvarez greeted Aunt Val like she was the mayor and me like I was her chief of staff. He printed a form that authorizes him to call me if any reverse mortgage conversation shows up again, and he put a note on Aunt's profile. No consultations without Aunt present and alert. He explained in plain language what a springing power of attorney is and how it only works when a doctor identifies incapacity, and even then, only within the scope of the document. Sometimes families do the right thing, and sometimes they do the other thing. On our way out, we ran into Jason on the sidewalk. He pretended the run-in was random. He acted like he was out for a walk in a neighborhood he never walks in. "Look at this," he said, holding up his phone. It showed a Canva graphic that read, "Pittsburgh Flip Collective. We're launching a brand. We help homeowners unlock value. We can do a 3-2-1 buy down, refinance, reverse mortgage, whatever, all ethical. We're thinking of doing a pilot in the family." "We're not doing that," I said. "I love knowing my little cousin thinks she's the gatekeeper," he said. He meant to sound kind. It did not land that way. "We have everything we need," Aunt said. "We have enough." Jason smiled like enough is a foreign currency. "Sure, Aunt Val, you've always been old school." Jason and Lila threw a small party the next night, not in our house, online. 15 Instagram stories, renovation tips, mood boards, a caption that said, "Our next reveal is going to break the internet. Grandma chic into modern minimal. Watch this space." In one photo, our porch railing appeared in the background like a photo-bombing friend. The HOA letter after that was sharper. It said there had been reports of non-compliance with short-term rental bylaws. It said an audit was scheduled. It included a list of documents we had to produce within 5 business days to maintain good standing. It was signed by Meredith, the board president, who never met a rule she didn't announce like scripture. I called her. "We're not running a short-term rental," I said. "I did not accuse you," she said, and I could hear the exact smile from a mile away. "I said there were reports. We have to check. It's our duty to preserve property values." "Who reported us?" I asked. "I can't say," she said. "Confidentiality and all that." "Tell them to look at the porch camera footage. It shows who's advising who." She sighed. "This is why we have rules," she said, and hung up. The audit letter gave us 5 business days. On day 1, I assembled a stack of evidence like a person constructing a safe place out of paper. Pharmacy deliveries with timestamps, nurse shift logs with my name and signature, the ring clips that showed contractors at odd hours, the screenshot of Lila taking photos at 10:43 p.m., the banknotes Mr. Alvarez printed for our file, the email where the realtor asked, "Could we get a quick peek?" and then responded to himself in the next email, "Let's do it, I'll bring Mason." I printed the HOA bylaws and highlighted the parts that define what a short-term rental is and isn't. I labeled each page with tabs. I put it all into a clean binder that my mother would have approved of. On day 2, someone slid an envelope under our door. It was not the mail. My name was printed in Sharpie on the front. Inside, there was a document that looked official, a power of attorney, with Aunt's name on the line and Jason's name on the agent line. It said springing. It said effective upon physician certification of incapacity. It said a lot of other things in dense, squinting text. The signature looked like Aunt's. The notary stamp was real or real looking. I took the page into the kitchen. Aunt put her glasses on and pulled the page close. "I didn't sign this," she said. "Then someone traced you," I said. I took a picture and emailed it to Mr. Alvarez. Then I texted Dr. Miller, Aunt's primary. He called me from the nurse's station and asked if everything was okay. "We need a letter," I said. "A short one. Not incapacitated, cognitively intact, no springing anything." "I'll write it," he said. "Pick it up at 4. At 4, he handed me a letter that felt like a lighthouse in fog. I asked him how often this happens. He said more often than it should. He said to lock your documents in a place where love can find them and hurry cannot. I promised we would. On day 3, Aunt got quiet. Not from fear, from anger, which she carries like a girl who grew up in a big family and had to claim the last pancake. She sat with me at the table and looked at the stack. "Do we tell Jason we know?" she asked. "No," I said. "We show the board. We show the bank if we have to. We show the clerk. We let the stamp be the conversation." She nodded and tapped the binder with the pad of her finger. "I hate that this is family," she said. "Me too," I said. "It was always going to be someone. Let it be him if it has to be someone, because I know how he plays." On day 4, there was a courtesy knock, and then the door opened before I could get there. Jason and Lila came in like a breeze that had borrowed perfume from an expensive store. Behind them, Meredith stepped in, already scanning, clipboard clutched like a chalice. "This is an audit," Meredith said, "not a raid." Lila pulled out her phone, angled it for good light, and smiled with all her teeth. "We love transparency," she said. Jason clapped once. "Family meeting. Everybody breathe." "No," I said. "We do not have family meetings with your realtor." "He's not here," Jason said. "He was here at 11:07 p.m., I said. "He was in the shadows because he knows better than to be in the light." Aunt Val cleared her throat. "I made coffee," she said. "No milk." "No thanks," Meredith said. "I need to check the upstairs for compliance. We've had reports." "There are no short-term tenants," I said. "Would you like to see the empty place? It smells like pine sol and dust." "We should check all the doors," Meredith said, as if I had suggested a game. "You can check the upstairs," I said. "Not the master bedroom. That's not part of any audit." My voice got cooler without my permission. "And you can keep your clipboard out here like a person who trusts her own pen." Meredith tightened her jaw but followed the stairs. Aunt and I stayed in the kitchen, hands flat on the table. Jason wandered to the hallway and touched the picture frames like his fingers were magnets for my grandfather's graduation photo, the one from 1961, when his ears were too big for his face and his eyes said, "I will figure this out." "You could get a lot for this," Jason said. "We could get peace for this," I said. "We like peace." "What if peace is the check you cash?" he asked. "What if it's not?" I said. Meredith announced trippingly that the upstairs had mismatched smoke detectors. That's a violation, she said, scribbling. Also, your window treatments upstairs are visible from the street. Window treatments? I asked. They're blinds, answered to me quietly. Lila took video of her own hair catching the afternoon light. This place could be a showpiece, she murmured. It's got a whole old thing. Nostalgia sells. Jason turned toward Aunt. We want to help, he said like a boy practicing sincerity. We'll take this off your plate. We'll manage everything. Renovations, listings, the whole funnel. By Friday, we could have interest locked. And by Friday, we could have you thrown out of the house for harassment, I said before I could stop myself. He stepped closer, the air coming off him warm. You think you're important. I think Aunt is protected. I know she is. He stared at me like I had spoken fluent finance. Behind him, Aunt lifted her chin in a way that made me feel taller. You two are adorable, Lila said. Saturday morning morals. We love to see it. They left with the sound of their shoes like punctuation. Meredith paused at the door. She said, we have a board meeting Friday, 3 p.m. emergency schedule. Your attendance is encouraged. We will attend. We will bring documents that bite. She didn't love that sentence. I loved that she didn't love it. Meredith announced trippingly that the upstairs had mismatched smoke detectors. That's a violation, she said, scribbling. Also, your window treatments upstairs are visible from the street. Window treatments? I asked. They're blinds, answered to me quietly. Lila took video of her own hair catching the afternoon light. This place could be a showpiece, she murmured. It's got a whole old thing. Nostalgia sells. Jason turned toward Aunt. We want to help, he said like a boy practicing sincerity. We'll take this off your plate. We'll manage everything. Renovations, listings, the whole funnel. By Friday, we could have interest locked. And by Friday, we could have you thrown out of the house for harassment, I said before I could stop myself. He stepped closer, the air coming off him warm. You think you're important. I think Aunt is protected. I know she is. He stared at me like I had spoken fluent finance. Behind him, Aunt lifted her chin in a way that made me feel taller. You two are adorable, Lila said. Saturday morning morals. We love to see it. They left with the sound of their shoes like punctuation. Meredith paused at the door. She said, we have a board meeting Friday, 3 p.m. emergency schedule. Your attendance is encouraged. We will attend. We will bring documents that bite. She didn't love that sentence. I loved that she didn't love it. On day 5, I put together a set of exhibits. Exhibit A, the trust letter dated 2014 with Aunt's name and mine, and the sentence in plain English that said no sale, no mortgage, and no listing without both signatures. Exhibit B, the bank letter from Mr. Alvarez stating concern about unauthorized attempts. Exhibit C, the letter from Dr. Miller confirming that Aunt had no cognitive impairment. Exhibit D, the ring video stills. Exhibit E, the HOA bylaw highlighted, showing that proposed short-term rental conversion runs through the board and not through DMs. Exhibit F, the email from the realtor fishing for a peek. Exhibit G, the courtesy notice about window boxes 2 inches too proud. Exhibit G was petty, but I wanted the room to smell its own smallness. Friday came in damp and cold. Aunt put on her church sweatshirt, then decided it was too casual and put on her navy cardigan. I taped the black key inside my pocket. I put the trust binder in my bag and the exhibit binder in my crook like a baby. We walked down to the community room where the board meets under fluorescent lights that make moral dilemmas look like school. Neighbors were already there, some with arms crossed, some with cookies. Meredith sat behind a folding table like a judge. The other board members sat flanking her like geometry. Jason and Lila sat in the front row together with 2 men who looked like they enjoyed turning the word leverage into a full sentence. Meredith started with the pledge and then launched into an agenda that had our address in bold. My chest hummed like a tuning fork. We have received credible reports of a planned non-compliant short-term rental conversion at 11-8 Cross Street, she said. The bylaws are clear. We do not allow short-term rentals under 30 days. We will be taking steps. Excuse me, I said, standing. That is our home. There is no planned rental. There is a planned attempt to pressure a senior into agreements she didn't make. Meredith tilted her head. Who are you? Nora Hart, I said, co-trustee of 11-8 Cross Street. That's not a title we recognize, one of the board members said. His voice had the tone of a person who would recognize Emperor of all fences if it came with a signature. Then recognize this, I said. I held up the binder. In 2014, this property was placed into a land trust. 2 signatures are required for any encumbrance, including short-term rental agreements where an owner is not present. I am one of those signatures. I have not signed. I will not sign. Anyone presenting a springing power of attorney that has not sprung is attempting fraud. There was a murmur. Someone 2 rows back said, "What's a land trust?" Someone else whispered, "That's smart." Jason stood like a person who wanted to inhabit all the air. We were trying to help Aunt Val access equity. She's sitting on cash under floorboards. Aunt stood too. It's not cash under floorboards, she said, her voice sharper than I had heard it in years. It's my home. It's where your mother braided your hair in that kitchen before school. It's where we buried my sister's ashes in the rose bed. It's where I sleep. You don't touch it like a tool. Lila rolled her eyes. We're not grave robbers, she said, then realized what she had said and tried to pull it back with her mouth. We're strategists. Mrs. Klein, who lives 2 doors down and has known Aunt since they sold lemonade for 10 cents, stood to speak. I saw contractors going in at night. I'm old, not blind. Meredith tapped her pen. We need to stay within procedure, she said, but she sounded less certain. A vote has been proposed to censure 1118 Cross Street for non-cooperation. You censure us, you'll be reversing the vote by Monday because we are cooperating. We're cooperating so hard, we're improving your record keeping. We have a list of contractors and times. We have videos. We also have a letter from the bank and a doctor. We are not the problem. I handed copies to the table. I handed copies to neighbors who wanted them. I placed one copy in front of Jason because I had printed one just for him in case he needed to feel the weight of paper we were building. Meredith read the letter from the bank. The other board member read the trust paragraph that used short, clear words. There is a tone people make when they read something that updates their operating system in real time. The room made that tone collectively. Meredith set the paper down like it was hot. We will open this to comments, she said. A chorus of small voices rose. Most were short. It's not right. Let her keep a house. We don't want Airbnbs. One voice in the back said, I want Airbnb money. But when 3 heads turned, he pretended to cough. There was a vote. The vote was to censure board member Meredith for misuse of audit powers pending review, to issue a community statement that no short-term rental conversion at 118 Cross Street is authorized, and to refer any elder abuse concerns to the appropriate city office. It passed with the speed of people who knew, deep down, they had been waiting for permission to act like neighbors again. Jason left first. He moved fast. Lila followed, heels clicking. Meredith packed her papers with hands that trembled. She did not look at me. She did not look at Aunt. She did look at Mrs. Klein, who had the expression of a woman who just put a pie in an oven and knows it will come out right. After the meeting, Aunt and I stepped into the hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed.
The community bulletin board had flyers for babysitting and piano lessons and one angry note about people who did not clean up after their dogs. I felt a trembling in my pocket and pulled out my phone. A notification from Mr. Alvarez. Attempted appointment moved to 4:30 p.m. downtown branch, advising to file memorandum today if possible. That sentence organized the rest of the day like a military cadence. I looked at Aunt. "We go now," I said. "We go now," she said, no wobble in her voice.
Downtown, traffic clotted near the courthouse. The sky was a slab of wet slate, and I kept thinking of how paper curls when the weather sucks it into itself. We found street parking because the parking gods wanted me to win one thing easily. We jogged the last half block under my jacket. Inside the lobby, a security guard glanced at my binder like it was a passport. The elevator was the kind that makes you feel like you were part of a small metal community. Aunt kept her hand on my arm and her eyes on the illuminated numbers. On the 3rd floor, the clerk behind the glass had hair like a gray halo and glasses that magnified her eyes so they looked gentle and alert at once. "Filing?" she asked. "Memorandum of trust," I said, "and revocation of any unauthorized power of attorney attempts we just found on our doorstep." She slid a form through the slot. My pen squeaked in the box that says property address. My handwriting went feral when adrenaline showed up. Aunt put her hand on mine, the way she does when I'm smoothing a bedsheet and can't get the corners right. Jason arrived like weather. The doors breathed. He moved to our counter and asked the clerk to pause our filing. He said we were family. He made it sound like a magic word that should open all other people's doors. The clerk did not look impressed. "If there's a valid trust, then these instruments speak louder than your description of your relationship." Lila was behind him, hair perfect in this gray light. Meredith wasn't far back, holding a stack of urgent documentation that I suspected would be less urgent after a stamp. The realtor glided in like a man who practiced gliding. Mr. Alvarez burst into the lobby like a referee in a well-fitting suit. He looked at the clerk, then at me. "We're here to file notice. There's been a fraudulent attempt to start a reverse mortgage discussion. We have certified letters for you to copy." The clerk nodded. "Slide 'em," she said, and he did. Meredith read the letter from the bank. The other board member read the trust paragraph that used short, clear words. There is a tone people make when they read something that updates their operating system in real time. The room made that tone collectively. Meredith set the paper down like it was hot. "We will open this to comments," she said. A chorus of small voices rose. Most were short. "It's not right. Let her keep a house. We don't want Airbnbs." One voice in the back said, "I want Airbnb money," but when 3 heads turned, he pretended to cough. There was a vote. The vote was to censure board member Meredith for misuse of audit powers pending review, to issue a community statement that no short-term rental conversion at 118 Cross Street is authorized, and to refer any elder abuse concerns to the appropriate city office. It passed with the speed of people who knew, deep down, they had been waiting for permission to act like neighbors again. Jason left first. He moved fast. Lila followed, heels clicking. Meredith packed her papers with hands that trembled. She did not look at me. She did not look at Aunt. She did look at Mrs. Klein, who had the expression of a woman who just put a pie in an oven and knows it will come out right. After the meeting, Aunt and I stepped into the hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed. The community bulletin board had flyers for babysitting and piano lessons and one angry note about people who did not clean up after their dogs. I felt a trembling in my pocket and pulled out my phone. A notification from Mr. Alvarez. Attempted appointment moved to 4:30 p.m. downtown branch, advising to file memorandum today if possible. That sentence organized the rest of the day like a military cadence.
I looked at Aunt. "We go now," I said. "We go now," she said, no wobble in her voice.
Downtown, traffic clotted near the courthouse. The sky was a slab of wet slate, and I kept thinking of how paper curls when the weather sucks it into itself. We found street parking because the parking gods wanted me to win one thing easily. We jogged the last half block under my jacket. Inside the lobby, a security guard glanced at my binder like it was a passport. The elevator was the kind that makes you feel like you were part of a small metal community. Aunt kept her hand on my arm and her eyes on the illuminated numbers. On the 3rd floor, the clerk behind the glass had hair like a gray halo and glasses that magnified her eyes so they looked gentle and alert at once. "Filing?" she asked. "Memorandum of trust," I said, "and revocation of any unauthorized power of attorney attempts we just found on our doorstep." She slid a form through the slot. My pen squeaked in the box that says property address. My handwriting went feral when adrenaline showed up. Aunt put her hand on mine, the way she does when I'm smoothing a bedsheet and can't get the corners right. Jason arrived like weather. The doors breathed. He moved to our counter and asked the clerk to pause our filing. He said we were family. He made it sound like a magic word that should open all other people's doors. The clerk did not look impressed. "If there's a valid trust, then these instruments speak louder than your description of your relationship." Lila was behind him, hair perfect in this gray light. Meredith wasn't far back, holding a stack of urgent documentation that I suspected would be less urgent after a stamp. The realtor glided in like a man who practiced gliding. Mr. Alvarez burst into the lobby like a referee in a well-fitting suit. He looked at the clerk, then at me. "We're here to file notice. There's been a fraudulent attempt to start a reverse mortgage discussion. We have certified letters for you to copy." The clerk nodded. "Slide 'em," she said, and he did.
Jason tried one more time with his voice pitched to the key that gets cashiers to let you return things past the deadline. "She's emotional," he said, meaning Aunt. "We need to protect her decisions from herself." "Nothing in her file indicates incapacity," Mr. Alvarez said, and slid the doctor's letter through the slot too. "Stop suggesting otherwise." The clerk flipped to the paragraph I wanted her to flip to. She read it in her head. Then she read it out loud so the lobby could hear the word co-trustee in my county's English. "2 signatures required, trustee and co-trustee. You are the co-trustee?" "I am," I said. "I accept the role if I haven't already." "There's a place to sign," she said, and slid another form. I signed, Aunt signed. The clerk pulled the stamp out from its tray. It had weight, like it had stamped some things that were heavy. It came down with a satisfying sound. 4:55 p.m. The time looked right. It felt like the right time to be clear. Jason made a noise, small and tight. Lila said a word into her phone that I'm pretty sure she had to censor later. The realtor closed his brochure box without ceremony. Meredith put a hand to her temple like the light had gotten too bright. I took the black key out of my pocket and set it on the counter next to the stamped paper. The clerk tilted her head. "What does it go to?" she asked. "To a promise," I said, because that was the only answer that felt right. Outside, the bus roared again. Aunt took a breath that didn't shake on the way in or out. Mr. Alvarez checked his watch like he had another fire to put out and then shook my hand and Aunt's in a sequence that looked like the sign for chalking a baseball bat. "Good afternoon's work," he said. "Call me if they try anything else." We did not go out to celebrate because neither of us owned a hat for a celebration like that. We went home and made tea. I boiled the water too long. Aunt put the wrong sugar in hers the first time and we laughed and fixed it.
The house felt like it does after a storm, when you walk around and count the shingles and find that they are still there. Jason did not come over. He sent texts. He called twice with the number that popped up as unknown, as if a question mark could make him more persuasive. I blocked the unknown. Lila posted a sad photo of a cup of coffee and captioned it, "Closed doors are redirecting us to better ones." Meredith sent a community email that said the board would be reviewing its practices in light of recent concerns and asked that we all remember civility in our communications. It was the first time I had seen the word civility on a neighborhood email that did not make me snort. On Saturday, Mrs. Klein brought warm banana bread and a story about how her son once tried to sell her old Buick out from under her, and how the DMV is actually competent when motivated. We sat at the table and ate slices with butter and listened to the rain. On Sunday, Aunt insisted on church. We sat in the pew near the side aisle where the light through the stained glass lands across the hymnals and makes everybody look like they are participating in a beautiful mistake. The sermon was about promises. I swore the pastor looked at me when he said, "A promise is a small lock on a very large door." After church, Aunt insisted on the diner with the chrome counter and the waitress who calls everyone honey like she means it. We order pancakes and eggs and one slice of pie, because if you think you earn pie, you are right.
Monday brought a letter from the city's elder abuse unit acknowledging receipt of the HOA referral and asking Aunt if she wanted to file a statement. Aunt said yes. She wrote it at the table with her pen that leaves a valley in her finger after more than 2 pages. Her statement was short. My nephew attempted to make changes to my home finances without my consent. I said no. My co-trustee helped me say no in a way that sticks. She put a smiley face after sticks and then crossed it out and then put a heart the size of a pea next to the date. Tuesday, a broker sign appeared on a lawn 3 streets over. Jason looked busy on his stories. Lila did a live while she made pasta and talked about hustle. The realtor stayed away from our block like it had grown a moat no one had the right vote for. Wednesday, the board posted minutes. The minutes were dull and polite, with the kind of language that lets people save face. They censured no one by name, but declared that audit power included a duty not to misuse it. They offered a training on ethical practice next month. I typed a thank you email and deleted it, and then typed it again with fewer adjectives. Thursday, Dr. Miller called to check on Aunt after reading the letter from the elder abuse unit. He asked Aunt how she was sleeping. She said, "Better than my nephew," which was so Aunt that Dr. Miller laughed out loud, and the nurse in the background said, "We stan Aunt Val," in a way that made my day weirdly. Friday, the porch light came on at dusk, as it always does, because Aunt set it on a timer the day she moved in. I replaced that bulb last winter at 7 p.m. with my fingers going numb. Standing on the porch that night, I watched the light spill across our steps in a way that looked theatrical. Across the street, Mrs. Klein's cat darted under a car and then darted out again like it was playing a game only it understood. In the quiet, Aunt said, "Bring me that binder." I brought it to the table. She slid out a letter she had tucked behind the back cover. It had been addressed to me for 2 years. The envelope was yellowed at the edges like bread left on a counter. She opened it with a butter knife carefully, then handed me the paper.
I read. It was simple. It named me co-trustee permanently today, not just in the contingent way from before. It said why in Aunt's handwriting, which has the consistency of a woman who learned cursive from a stern teacher and then softened it with decades of shopping lists. It said, "You love the bones of this place. You make lists that bite and casseroles that cure. When I am scared, you bring tea. When I am stubborn, you are stubborn too. When I'm gone, you do what you think is best, and when you don't know what is best, you wait until you do." I tried not to cry. I did not succeed. Aunt put her hand on my arm and patted like I was 5. "Promise me one thing," she said. "Don't let this make you bitter." I nodded. "I won't. I'll let it make me good at paperwork." She laughed into her cup and then coughed and then waved me off when I startled. "Oh, okay," she said. "Don't turn me into a character that only coughs for drama." "Noted," I said. The next week, a certified letter arrived for Jason. It was not from us. It was from the state. It said there was an investigation into attempted financial exploitation. It invited him to a chat. I did not call to ask how he felt about that, and he did not call to ask how I felt about anything. Lila posted a photo of a sunset and a caption about learning and unlearning and always choosing love. I believe people are allowed to learn. I do not believe they are allowed to learn on us without our permission.
Meredith resigned as board president and took a seat on the landscape committee, where she measured the height of ornamental grasses with an enthusiasm that startled the grass. The new board sent out a newsletter that started with, "We're neighbors, not cops," which made Mrs. Klein clap on her porch out loud when she read it. Mr. Alvarez left me a voicemail when a man tried to open a line of credit with Aunt's name and almost Aunt's address. He said, "Blocked. Thought you'd like to know." I saved the voicemail in a folder called People Who Do Their Jobs. A month later, I swapped the blinds upstairs for new ones that actually match because now we were in compliance even under the gaze of someone who likes rolls too much. I cleaned out the upstairs closet and found a box of my old nursing textbooks that made my back ache at the memory of carrying them. I took them to the used bookstore that smells like brilliant teenagers and dust. On a Tuesday morning, when the air tasted like rain that changed its mind, Aunt decided she wanted to make pierogies from scratch. We rolled dough until flour settled on the floor in a drift shaped like an apology we didn't need to make to anyone. We filled them with potatoes and cheese and onions and lined them up on a towel like small ships. Around noon, there was a knock. Not insistently, a light human knock. I opened the door. Jason stood there without Lila. He had on a t-shirt and jeans and a look I did not know how to read. He held his hands out, empty. He said, "I came to say I'm sorry," he said. "I came to say I was wrong." Aunt called from the kitchen, "We're making pierogies. You can be wrong while you fold." He cried then, in the hallway like a boy who had scraped his knee. It is not my job to judge how much of that was for us and how much it was for whatever was happening in his life under the shiny posts. I went to get a towel so he could wipe his face and then told him to wash his hands with soap for 20 seconds because if he was going to touch anything in this kitchen, he would do it clean. We sat at the table. Aunt showed him how to pinch the edges of dough into a seal that doesn't break when you boil it. He pinched 3 too loosely and laughed when they burst. He made a dozen better.
"I thought," he said, halting, "I thought money would fix everything. I thought if I could help you get more, you'd be grateful. I didn't listen." "You didn't ask," Aunt said. "There's a difference." He nodded. "They ask me questions at an office where the air feels heavy. I answered them. I don't know what happens next." "Consequences," Aunt said, "but they're not a life sentence, not if you adjust." He looked at me. "Can we start over?" "We can start over in a way that doesn't include your hands on our paperwork," I said. "We can start over with dinner. We can start over with you doing the dishes. We can't start over like none of it happened." "I'll take that," he said. "I'll take dishes." I watched him in the next 20 minutes. He rinsed plates. He didn't steal anything. He asked Aunt if she needed chairs moved. He didn't open drawers like he was searching for keys to rooms other people live in. He left with a Pyrex of pierogies and an awkward hug at the door that Aunt returned, and I accepted. After he left, I put the black key in the top drawer of the writing desk in the living room under the checkbook and the stamps and the list of who we owe calls. The drawer sticks in summer.
I like to think it prefers to stay shut unless someone who loves the bones of this place needs it. At night, I sat with Aunt and watched a rerun of a show where nothing bad happens except the occasional misunderstanding that is resolved within 30 minutes. The porch light clicked on by itself because we told it to. The house settled in the kind of creaks that let you know wood is telling itself it is strong. Months passed in the regular way. The seasons took their turn at the window and over the stairs. We ate soup in bowls that chipped in a way that made Aunt sigh and then keep eating. I did my shifts. I wrote numbers in a spiral for Aunt's meds that looks like a simple math problem that contains our life. We put chrysanthemums in the window boxes in September at the approved depth. Meredith walked by and nodded at our compliance and did not bring a tape measure. One day in October, I got a letter from the law office with a loud laugh. The letter inside was from a new attorney, but she wrote with the same plainness. She said she had reviewed the trust, confirmed the filing, filed the notice with the title underwriters so no one can slip a surprise into the record, and added me as co-trustee of record in the system that keeps track of such things. She said we had done everything right in a way that made me feel like I had done something more than just show up with a binder. She closed the letter with, "This is what we build systems for, to help good people hold on to what holds them." That night, Aunt sliced apples too thin for a pie I would have made thicker, and we ate them anyway and called it perfect. The porch light clicked on at dusk. Across the street, the cat did its route. I checked the door twice and then once more for luck. I took the binder out and looked at the first page, not because I doubted it now, but because it felt like holding a friend's hand. I used to think that family is a place where you never use words like stamp and counter and filing and memorandum. Now I know that family is also those words when it needs to be. It is a promise that lives in a blue ribbon. It is a key you keep for 10 years until the day everything depends on whether you kept it. It is a table where you count carbs and fold pierogies and sign your name while a clerk watches and then stamps something that deserves to be real. If you asked me what I remember most about that Friday, I would not say the look on Jason's face or the clatter of Meredith's papers or the realtor closing his glossy case. I would say the sound the stamp made and the weight of Aunt's hand on mine while the ink dried. I would say the bus on Grant Street roaring like a promise kept. I would say the porch light waiting for us to come home and sit under it and let the house tell us in creaks and small groans that it still knew our names. Weeks later, a friend from work asked me how to help her grandfather who's getting letters about offers you can't refuse. I told her to bring him tea and to listen like she has time. I told her to look for any binder with the ribbon. I told her to ask him what he wants when no one is offering him anything. I told her to keep a list and make copies. I told her to get to the clerk before anyone else tries to confuse the air. In the spring, when the river looks like it wants to be a mirror and the sidewalks remember they belong to people, we held a block party. It was Aunt's idea, which meant I did the shopping and she did the charming. Meredith brought lemonade and the measuring tape, though she laughed when I teased her about it and pretended to measure the potato salad for fun. Jason came with a tray of chicken from the corner store, and an apology he made again, not because we asked, but because he needed to say it out loud to more than just us. He had a meeting with the state, and his face looked like a map where the road is more honest going forward. Lila waved from across the street when she drove by in a car covered with a wrap advertising something that was nobody's business, and also everyone's. She did not stop.
She posted a story of the block party from the car window and tagged it with a heart. I did not engage. I wiped mustard off the table and passed Aunt a fork. As the sun lowered behind the row of houses that have known more kitchen conversations than any board knows what to do with, the porch lights clicked on in a row, one by one, like a string of polite stars. The kids chalked the sidewalk with crooked rainbows. Someone's radio played an old Motown song that makes every generation shake shoulders slightly. Aunt leaned against me for a moment, just a little, the way a person does when they are not tired but want to feel the fence line. She patted my arm twice. I looked around and saw our window boxes exactly where they should be, and the front steps scrubbed, and the top rail smooth where Aunt's hand rubs it when she leaves and returns. If you watch closely, you can tell when a house is relieved. The screens sit soft in their frames, the hinges stop complaining, the light falls in through the kitchen window like it trusts the floor. That's what 118 Cross Street looks like now. It does not know Instagram. It knows us. It knows when we come home. It knows where the binder lives and when we sleep, and that we lock the door out of habit and not out of fear. I do not pretend this story ends with everyone hugging in a montage. It ends like most real things. People go back to their corners and decide how they will be next time. The board learned a new tone. The bank did the right thing twice. The doctor wrote a letter that mattered. The clerk stamped. The realtor closed his case and opened a different one for someone who wanted him there. Jason stands at the sink and does dishes when he comes over now, and Aunt lets him, and I am learning to let him without standing 2 feet away like a bouncer. Lila posts sunsets. The cat patrols. The porch light clicks on. When I turn that light on now in my mind and in the switch, I think of the black key that lived under tape for a decade. I think of Aunt trusting me to know the day. I think of a stamp at 4:55 p.m. that made ink into a wall no one could push through without consent. I think of how ordinary the office was and how holy it felt to tell a stranger, who happened to be a clerk, yes, this is ours and we're keeping it. I sleep with the window cracked on spring nights because the alley smells like rain and somebody's rinsed water and the faintest hint of the river. The sound that pulls me down into sleep is the house breathing. It says the trust holds. It says this place is not inventory. It says we are a family with paperwork and with pancakes, and both are sacred and both are better with love. On a morning when the first bikes of summer ring their bells like they're trying to start something, Aunt makes coffee and we sit on the stoop with our mugs. Mrs. Klein waves a spatula from her kitchen. A kid with a shaved head and an oversized helmet wobble rides down the block. The mail carrier stops to hand Aunt a catalog she doesn't need and compliments the chrysanthemums that have not yet given up. Do you ever think about moving? I ask Aunt because I know the answer, but I like how she says it. Every day, she says, and then grins. And every day, I stay. Good, I say. The house likes you. The house likes you, she says. And I have documentation. We clink mugs like it's champagne. The porch light is off because the sun is doing its job. The black key is in its drawer. The binder sits in the desk, third slot from the top, behind the bills and in front of an envelope addressed to no one that I keep because I like the weight of a letter that has not decided what it is yet. I check Aunt's meds. I mark her numbers in the spiral. I look at the window boxes and wonder if this is the week we plant basil. I think of Friday at 4:49 p.m. and how close that felt and how not close it was, because in the places that matter, the decision had been made years ago with a ribbon and a key and a sentence that says 2 heads, not 1. I think of how sometimes love is loud and sometimes it is a form with a signature. If you want to know the trick,
It's this: keep your promises in writing. Keep your paperwork where love can find it. Keep your keys where your hand lands when it's nervous. Keep your neighbor's numbers. Keep your porch light on a timer. Keep your voice steady. Keep your boundaries. Keep the door open to the kind of apology that shows up with clean hands and learns to do the dishes. And if a day comes when the bus on Grant Street roars and your heart thuds and a clerk looks at you over her glasses and asks, "Filing?" Slide your binder forward. Say yes. Listen for the stamp. It will sound like the house calling you by your name. The end does not look like a line. It looks like tonight. A skillet cooling on the stove, a list on the counter that says milk, basil, stamps, and the note that says, "Remind Aunt to call Sister Margaret about the rummage sale." It looks like my shoes by the door and the porch light ready to keep watch. It looks like a house that is not a product and a life that is not a brochure. It looks like 2 signatures and the knowledge that in this corner of this city, promises kept have a weight all their own.